Imagine losing all your children in a war. The pain a mother feels upon losing a child is immeasurable. But what happens when she loses them all? The story we will tell today is about Lydia Bixby, a woman who, at the height of the American Civil War, was struck by an unimaginable tragedy. In 1864, a woman named Lydia Bixby received a letter. But it was no ordinary letter. This was not a common letter. It was a letter from the President of the United States, Abraham Lincoln. A letter that, despite being written in a moment of immense pain, carried words of solidarity, humanity, and a profound acknowledgement of Lydia's loss. It was a direct message from the President of the United States, Abraham Lincoln. Abraham Lincoln, known for his strength and wisdom during one of the most turbulent times in American history, revealed a personal and deeply empathetic side when writing to Lydia Bixby. He was not writing merely as a political leader, but as a man, touched by the tragedy of a mother who lost her sons in the fight to preserve a nation torn apart by civil war. The content of this letter still moves generations and resonates to this day as one of the most beautiful expressions of empathy ever written by a leader. The letter Lincoln wrote to Lydia Bixby not only brought comfort in a moment of great loss, but also became a symbol of how words can transcend politics and touch people's hearts. What he wrote in that letter continues to echo as a message of humanity, in times when the pain of loss remains a reality for so many families. To understand the weight of Lincoln's letter, we must go back in time to one of the bloodiest periods in U.S. history, the American Civil War. The war, which began in 1861, divided the country between the North, fighting to preserve the Union, and the South, defending the continuation of slavery. The conflict was devastating, leaving thousands dead and wounded, and a fractured nation grappling with an uncertain future. At the height of this conflict in 1864, Lydia Bixby, a woman from Massachusetts, found herself at the center of a personal tragedy. She was a widow, and her sons had been called to fight for the Union cause. In a moment of immense pain, Lydia received the news that all 5 of her sons had lost their lives on the battlefield. The weight of this loss was almost unbearable, but fate had something more in store. The governor of Massachusetts, aware of the tragedy the woman faced, brought Lydia's story to President Abraham Lincoln. He believed something needed to be done to show solidarity and empathy for this mother who had lost everything for her country. And so Lydia's story reached Lincoln's desk, prompting the president to write a letter that, even in the context of a brutal war, overflowed with humanity. In response to Lydia Bixby's unimaginable pain, Abraham Lincoln, the man facing the division of his nation, felt compelled to write. In his letter, dated November 21st, 1864, Lincoln sought, with sincerity and respect, to offer solace to this mother who had lost all her sons. The letter stood out not for empty promises, but for the purity of its empathy. The text began with simple yet profound words. "I pray that our Heavenly Father may assuage the anguish of your bereavement." Here Lincoln does not present himself as a distant politician, but as a humble man, sharing the pain of a mother who sacrificed her family for the cause of a nation. The use of the term Heavenly Father also suggests an attempt to reconnect Lydia to spirituality and the comfort that could be found in her faith during such intense suffering. Another poignant excerpt that illustrates the president's profound empathy was, "No words can console a mother who gave so many sons for her country." These words not only acknowledged Lydia's sacrifice, but also the sacrifices of all mothers who, throughout the war, lost sons in the name of union and freedom. With this letter, Lincoln gave voice to the collective suffering of many American families, making it a message of solidarity. The letter was not sent as a matter of politics or convenience. It was not a letter from a president making promises to ease a crisis. On the contrary, it was a personal and heartfelt message from a man who, despite the immense responsibilities of his office, did not forget the human suffering behind the war's numbers. Over the years, Lincoln's letter to Lydia Bixby has solidified as a symbol of empathy and humanity. However, As with many historical events, there are aspects of this letter's story that have sparked discussions and speculations. One of the first questions that arose was about the authenticity of the letter's content. Some historians have suggested that the letter, though signed by Lincoln, might have been written by one of his secretaries. These scholars believe that, given the high workload and responsibilities Lincoln faced during the Civil War, he may not have been the direct author of the message. Even so, Lincoln's signature and the personal nature of the letter indicate that he likely approved, and at the very least, oversaw the message sent to Lydia Bixby. Regardless of who penned the words, they remain an authentic expression of Lincoln's sentiments at the time. Another point of controversy relates to the true tragedy experienced by Lydia Bixby. Historical accounts suggest that the Massachusetts widow did not lose 5 sons in the war, as initially claimed, but that some of her sons may have deserted or even survived the conflict. Some more recent studies indicate that the deaths of her sons were exaggerated or misinterpreted, raising questions about the true extent of Lydia's suffering. This does not diminish, however, the greatness of the letter, which, regardless of the exact circumstances, conveys a profound empathy and solidarity that transcends any factual inaccuracies. However, these discussions do not diminish the emotional impact of the letter, which has become, over time, a significant symbol of comfort and patriotic mourning. At many military funerals and moments of national grief in the United States, the letter has been read aloud, serving as a reminder that even the highest leaders of the country are capable of acknowledging the personal pain and sacrifice of their citizens. It was not merely a political message, it was a genuine expression of humanity, amid one of the darkest periods in American history. This is not just a letter, it is the weight of a nation trying to express gratitude for the impossible, a mother's sacrifice. Lydia Bixby became unwittingly a symbol of all the families who lost loved ones in wars. And Abraham Lincoln, in writing those words, was not speaking only to her. He was speaking to thousands of anonymous mothers, fathers, and children weeping for similar losses. It was the President of the United States shedding his title, his formality, to write as one human to another, with pain, with respect, with reverence. And even in such dark times, Lincoln chose to respond with words that still touch the hearts of those who read them today. He offered no political promises, nor did he seek to justify the war. He simply tried to comfort. And that perhaps is the most powerful gesture of all. How many lives fit within a letter? In the case of Mrs. Bixby, at least 5. But the echo of this letter reached far beyond her personal grief. It became a whisper of compassion that continues to be heard across centuries. Letters like this remind us that, behind the great events of history, there are silent voices carrying the pain, love, and sacrifices of entire generations. Not all names appear in history books, but a single letter, written with sincerity, read with empathy, and cherished with reverence, can immortalize feelings that time can never erase. If this story touched you, share this video with someone who values the memory and humanity behind words. Comment below what you felt upon hearing this letter. And if you want to keep exploring letters that change destinies, subscribe to the Lost Letters channel. Here, every word reveals a piece of the human soul.